Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Dungeon About. We start this one by talking about some news items like the recent closure of Piranha Bytes and also the price increases and sort of changes to Gamepass. And then in the second half of the podcast, we cover a puzzle adventure game Lorelei and the Laser Eyes in quite a bit of detail. Also, beware of spoilers for that one. That's a deep puzzle game. If you actually want to play it, might not want to listen to our playthrough of it. But if you don't care about that, there's some crunchy discussion in there. So I hope you'll enjoy this episode of A Dungeon About. Piranha Bytes closed, Vincent. Did you hear? That was one of the big news items.
I did. I wasn't surprised by it because
No one was, I think.
yeah, and when I played Gothic 1 a while ago, like a month ago or two, I already read that they were basically they were preparing to shut down at that point, and it was new. It was public enough that it was on their Wikipedia page.
Yeah, they were in the death throes for a while there.
Yeah.
And of course, for everyone out there, Piranha Bytes, game studio that originally made Gothic 1 and 2, which were like...
And 3.
Yes, and other games too, but I would say, would you agree, those are the ones they are well known for and loved for. Gothic 3...
Yes.
Known, yes. Loved, maybe not so much, you know?
Yeah.
It's.
Yeah,
I
no,
think
you're right.
Gothic 1 and 2 are their claim to fame.
Yeah.
And excuse me, those are, of course, much beloved and much discussed games for this stream. And so I just thought it's notable that Piranha Bytes is closing, even though, they were in their death throes. And I think, like, they also made Alex of more recent notoriety.
Yeah. Yeah. I just looked it up. They made basically 3 games. They made Gothic 1, 2, and 3.
And Risen, right?
Risen
Yeah.
1, 2, and 3. And Elex 1 and 2, and they didn't make it to the third one.
Yeah, and I think the head of the studio, he really wanted to make another. Is it Alex or Elix? Probably Elix, right?
I think, yeah.
Yeah. So he wanted to make Elix 3, I guess, but the publisher was pushing them to make another Gothic because apparently I guess the publisher has the license or something. I'm not quite sure how that worked. And
I don't know.
the head of the studio apparently left because he was like really committed to Elix. I also get it. There is a version of making another Gothic game that's just a mere cash grab and really trying to squeeze the last bits of money from a beloved franchise. You know,
Yeah.
we've seen that happen. And apparently this is also, I wasn't quite aware of this. I read about this. The Piranha Bytes is part of the Embracer group, right? And Embracer, of course, is in a huge like pile of shit, basically, and
Yes.
going under and
Selling stuff off, yeah.
Yes, and like they're going under, and they're also pulling a bunch of IPs that they've acquired. Right, they went through this phase where they just gobbled up all kinds of IPs out there, and they're now pulling them sort of down into the abyss.
Yeah.
And I guess Piranha Bytes is one of the many casualties.
Yeah, though, I mean,
Yeah,
you can't
yeah.
argue against the fact that they've been working on it themselves a little bit.
No, it was definitely not a surprise.
Yeah.
I would say it's just, I feel like it's a big chapter of gaming coming to a close.
Yeah.
Even though there is the Gothic 1 remake, right? So, there's a silver lining. That's a completely different studio and team. And also, of course, I do have to say, like, Piranha Bytes is going down, but of course, at this point, pretty much none of the people working there that wasn't the original Gothic 1 and 2 crew. They had moved on for some time, I think, a while ago.
I mean, I believe.
That's what I read.
Yeah, okay. I believe you absolutely.
It's all like, of course, I do not like go to original sources and corroborate my data and stuff because that's not what you do these days. But I read it somewhere on Twitter or whatever, and that's good enough for me. So, source, trust me, bro.
Yeah.
No, but I think that's true, though.
Yeah. And it's just weird because they basically remade the same game like
Yeah,
9 times.
it's true, but I'm kind of fine with that. Do you know what I mean? It's also not uncommon. Like even with authors, like books, you know, it's like there's people who just keep rewriting the same book, and I kind of get it. It's like if someone has a really strong creative vision, and you know they're just iterating on that same concept because it's like maybe they didn't get it quite right the first time, like what they wanted to do, and it's almost like
Which is, I think, exactly what happens with
Yeah.
Gothic and Gothic
yeah,
2.
yeah, because they were so ambitious, right?
Yeah.
And it couldn't quite
also
get there.
very small compared to the team. Or I don't know about the team, but I'm assuming the finance side was significantly bigger after making Gothic 1.
Oh yeah, and I mean Gothic 2 is objectively a bigger game, right?
Yeah,
Wouldn't you
definitely.
say? And like,
I mean, they literally have the same area of Gothic 1 in Gothic 2, but then they also have
Sure.
another entire island.
yeah. And
yeah.
just it feels bigger. It feels like there's more systems involved and all that stuff. But oh well, like that's that. Not much more to say about that.
Yeah, I wish for more games like Gothic 2, but I don't know. I didn't even play Elix. I played the first two Risens, and they were good, I would say. Felt very much like Gothic.
Yeah, I've never heard anything that hooked me about Risen. And Elix, I think, like the whole, okay, we have sci-fi ogres and stuff that gets me excited for some reason, and I wanted to see
Yes.
what is their take on a sci-fi world.
Like
But I
Shadowrun,
just heard
yes.
it was too bugged and stuff, at least at the release, and then I never looked into it, and then it just sort of passed me by.
Yeah, also, despite the fact that there were like 15 years of development time between the two, or just time between the two, I heard the same issues from Elix that I heard about Gothic 2. Like,
Right.
for example, the weird controls.
Right. Don't people expect that by now?
I guess.
And
but
want
it's,
that?
Maybe.
I don't know. I mean,
But
I
at
agree
the
that
same
they're
time,
weird.
it's-
We've talked about it this at length.
Yeah, maybe in that case, it's good that they finish that chapter of game development and start anew. Or
It's like
start differently.
some branches of the evolutionary tree just need to die.
Yes, basically.
I mean, yeah, I agree.
The controls were never why I like Gothic.
No, I don't think that's what made Gothic good either.
Yeah.
But though I do, I mean, okay, if you really want to like devil's advocate this, I can see that the sort of creative mindset that came up with those janky controls, that is also part of the soul of Gothic.
Sure.
And it's like, if you want the one, you also have to take the other.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that's what a devil's advocate would say. And we don't believe in the devil here. So, like, I don't know. I think you can iterate on the controls. I think after 15 years, you can expect that.
Yeah, enough time has passed.
Well, but anyway, who's making I want to end this segment on something positive. Who's doing the remake of Gothic 1?
Alkema Interactive.
Right. And there's no horrible news about this, right? They're still chugging along.
Yes, as far as I know.
Yeah.
It's still planned for sometime later this year, I think.
Okay.
Is there anything? I remember finding the article about when they actually want to release it. But now I can't.
Okay, yeah, but later this year is fine. I'll put it in the show notes. I have something else. This is also sort of depressing. I hope you said you had something, so I hope you have something fun and good. But it's also, this might not be big news to anyone. To me, it's sort of important because I love that game and I've mentioned it before. So the creator of Cart Life, right? Economic simulator and award-winning indie game Cart Life.
Card Live. Okay.
Yeah, I mentioned this to you several times, Vincent, and we looked at it on Steam. It's an economic simulator where you play as a sort of, I guess, an immigrant into some country. Might be the U.S. Probably it is the U.S., but I don't think that's important, and it's not necessarily mentioned in the game. But it's definitely important that you're an immigrant and you run like a cart, or a kiosk or something like that, right?
Okay, then this isn't it, because Card Life is an online sci-fi survival game.
No, that's not it. But cart with T, right? CART, and then life.
Oh yeah, okay. That looks.
You've
more
seen
familiar.
this, right?
Yeah.
I've shown
We
this
have
to you.
talked about it.
Yeah. And there was a remake actually in progress, and the creator canceled it. And it's I don't know. It's sort of a bit weird. Everyone's a little bit worried because the messages apparently by the creator on the Steam forums, like he just suddenly announced that it's like not gonna happen and that quote, this is the bad ending and it's his fault.
Okay.
It's just he was getting more and more erratic, as is what people said, and it's just yeah, I don't know. I wish that guy all the best because I do love that game. He seems like an incredibly passionate creator, and it just made it sound like he's struggling a little bit. Like he had an itch.io site for his games. I don't know if you can find that and stuff, but it was like you could highlight the site and then there was like hidden links in the background to the Supreme Court ruling that the US Supreme Court ruling that it is now legal for states to outlaw homelessness, to make homelessness a criminal offense. And then he was like linking other like ominous like dark stuff, and I think that guy just he might be struggling a little bit. And I don't know, I worry, and I just love that game. Wanted to bring it up. Maybe if you haven't played it out there, go buy Cart Life.
What the hell is this?
Are you looking at the itch.io site?
I'm not sure, but the developer is
Yeah, what's his name?
Richard Hofmeier.
That's right, yeah.
I don't know if he's German, but he sounds German. And his itch.io is his name, but struck through. And if you click on it, it's just a series of portraits of characters.
Okay.
But like in not really a similar style to Card Life. But
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he was working
nothing
on the
about-
remake, right?
Yeah,
So-
nothing about games. Nothing. It's really just a black box with changing images of
I mean,
more and more weird. This still keeps going. There's like an image a second, and like some of them are weird.
like, how do you mean weird?
Like some of them are just sort of caricatures of humans.
Right.
But there was also one where the author had replaced the nose of a character with a gamepad and stuff like that.
Okay. But the thing is, all of this, if I didn't have this somewhat dark context now, this might just be a fun marketing thing or like an alternate reality game thing, right?
Absolutely. It's just wild.
Yeah. If you do Control A and you mark everything, do you see hidden links? Is this true, what I said? He might have removed it by now. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think it's just...
All right.
Yeah, it's just
All
the
right.
game,
Never
the pictures.
Maybe
Very
that's
interesting.
going on. Though I find it interesting. Cart Life was definitely a game, you know, it stuck in my mind so much because it's such a cool way to bring that sort of struggle of migrating to a country, which I don't know what that's like, but you know, that game really brought that to life in a way where I felt it's kind of without any kind of sort of political or ideological agenda. Do you know what I mean? It's just
yeah.
about like it's almost, I know this, I'm being sort of pompous, but this sort of what art wants to do, right? It's just like give you an experience.
Yeah.
Right. And art is about, like, I guess, you know, that's what you could say. Like, art is about what it's like to be a human being. Right. And that's kind of what Cart Life was doing really well. I felt, you know, about this sort of harsh migrant experience in a way that only games could, you know, by
Yeah.
like you would have a map, like a mini map and stuff with locations, like in other games. But like the script would be all in like weird characters or whatever, or like in a language you don't understand, so that you know what it's like
course, yeah,
to
yeah.
have to sort of navigate an economic landscape in a country that you don't understand. And then you're at the cart just selling hot dogs or whatever, and then just out of nowhere, you know, a police officer comes by and it's like, oh, hello, could I see your license? And then yeah, you show him your license, but it's like, oh god, you know, makes you anxious. Just that interaction, and now you don't know. Oh, it's that guy. Does he have it out for me? Is he going to come every day?
Yeah.
Like, and you know, you're continuously struggling, and it's just there's no like big didactic message. There's no hand holding. It's just this experience just speaks for itself. And it's just I don't know. It's sort of, I find it. I mean, okay, in that context, do you understand why I find it interesting when that guy puts a link to like homelessness and the Supreme Court on his website and stuff?
Totally.
It's just, yeah, I don't know. But oh well, I mean that's happening. I have no huge point to make with this. It's just something I noticed and I wanted to share it with you.
Yeah, it is a shame. I mean, even now, just watching the trailer on mute, it looks really interesting and cool, and
Yeah,
I would have loved to try it.
yeah. I mean, if there had been a remake, I probably would have pushed you to play it with me.
Yeah.
But I also don't know. I mean, I just hope that guy gets exactly what he needs, and maybe making that remake is not what he needs right now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
This is the last news item I have, and this is sort of probably bigger news, but not as interesting to us. So they're changing Game Pass, right? This is more like games industries getting shitty news. Have you heard about this?
Yes.
They're just increasing prices and removing features, I guess.
Yes.
Is that a fair assessment?
That is a fair assessment. Yes. They are increasing prices, and I don't know exactly how it works. They are removing like the console pass.
Yeah, I read that. I had no idea what that means.
Me neither. I don't have a console.
Yeah,
so,
we're so stupid. I apologize. But yeah.
But yeah, it's sort of expected, right? It's how
Yeah, everyone saw it coming.
It's how capitalism works. You buy everything up, and then you are very cheap until nobody else remains, and then you push prices up.
I agree, though I would modify that statement slightly by saying that is how the current tech interpretation of capitalism is being done.
Sure.
I don't want to give it to them that, oh, this is just how it has to be. No, they're choosing to do it this way, and the legislators are choosing to allow it.
Yeah, sure.
But it's certainly, yeah, that's what we're getting right now, and it shouldn't be surprising to anyone, right? It's like this, they're capturing the market with inflationary low prices, and then they're enshittifying everything and upping the prices.
But what they also did, what I found maybe a little bit more interesting than just increasing the prices, they introduced a new tier, I guess, that doesn't include the day one games.
Yeah. Can you explain that to me? What was day one games previously, and like what do you get now when you get Game Pass?
Usually, or how it used to be, and still is, I guess. I don't know when it actually happens. It's you buy Game Pass and you have access to all games that are available at that time, and there's no difference between new releases or old releases. It's just all there, and you can download whatever you want, play whatever you want. And
like you get a subscription to a big library, and you can check out wherever you want.
Exactly.
Explain it to my old millennial self.
Yes, with library.
Back in the day when we had libraries.
Yes. So imagine you're taking out a DVD.
So you're saying the internet is tubes, not trucks.
And the way they change that now is that there's a second tier that that is more expensive and also includes day one games. So, for example, stuff like what was not Hellraiser? What was
Hellblade?
Hellblade, yeah.
The game that they didn't market at all.
Yeah,
you only get that in tier 2?
Yeah, but it's a day one game.
Holy shit. They really don't want anyone to play Hellblade, I think.
No, I think that is the natural consequence of realizing that if we have all these game studios and we push them to push out these great new games, but then they just are part of our subscription service, then there's really no point to it apart from maybe gathering a few additional subscriptions that really want to play that specific game.
Sure.
And yeah, so
I mean, they're still getting money monthly.
Sure.
Right. And, but I guess, yes, it's not a way to make even more money.
Exactly.
Yes. And of course, I don't know, like, if they're in the red or, if it's even economical what they're doing. No idea. But yeah, apparently, maybe not. Who knows? But I mean, they chose this subscription model. So
Yeah, and now they are choosing an even more complicated and expensive subscription model. Yes.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so you can't just like, let's say I don't have a Game Pass, but now Hellblade's coming out. I really want to play Hellblade. I love the idea of that, and so I could have previously subscribed to Game Pass and then just played Hellblade immediately, and maybe ended my subscription also after 5 hours after I finished the game.
Sure. I don't know if they do that. I think you have to pay for the whole month.
Sure, but then,
yeah.
you know, after that I could.
Sure. Which basically means you get the AAA or AA or whatever game Hellblade for what, $15?
Yeah, I don't know how expensive it was, but they've just increased it as well, right? So now I don't know what the correct price is. But
yeah, I
you
think
get
now
it
it's 20.
You get it
I'm not
below $60.
Yeah. And even if you have it for the whole year, right?
Yeah.
Let's assume it's $15. That was what it was last time I had it.
Yeah.
That's like 2, maybe 3 full-priced games. And
how could that ever work? I mean, let's face it, like, right? I mean, $60. Like, yes, I know game pricing is weird in general, and software pricing is weird because, you know, you can copy that stuff for free once you've made it and stuff. But if it's like a AAA title, just considering the production costs, I don't think $60 is that much.
I agree.
Especially considering that games have they have been becoming, because the price point hasn't really increased over all these years, so they've effectively been becoming cheaper because of inflation.
Yeah.
So it's already not that much, and now with Game Pass it's way cheaper somehow. Like, how is that ever gonna work?
I think the whole idea behind the subscription model is, on one hand, we do it's certainly about being cheaper than everybody else, and for the moment maybe not being profitable in favor of gathering more users and then pushing the price. But it's also about finding players that would usually not have played that game. Right, so you just have a...
Right, because you're already on Game Pass, and then you try out stuff that you maybe wouldn't necessarily be willing to spend $60 on.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's the same with Netflix, where they continue to make movies, and like 1 in 3 of them is good, but
yeah,
you might as well watch the other 2 as well, right? Because you're already paying. So
yeah, I guess, and it at least keeps you on the platform.
And then I guess for the real AAA titles, there are also like collector's editions and all that stuff, which might get them more money. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not surprised that they increased the prices, because
I agree.
It's even with the increased prices, it's probably a pretty good deal. Like, if it's $20 now, it's for a whole year, it's $240, which is a lot. But then again, if you expect to pay $60 for a full price game, that's 4 games.
It depends on what kind of gamer you are, right? There's like this huge iceberg. I feel like, I don't know the stats, but I feel like we are a weird exception, right? You and me and people like us, right? That we care so much about games, and we look at the industry and like look at all these different little games and stuff. There's a huge iceberg out there of people who only play 1 or 2 games maybe per year.
Yeah, sure.
And that's their thing, right?
Absolutely. I mean, normal people.
Yes, exactly.
Buy Baldur's Gate 3 and they're happy for a year.
Yeah, and we also played for a year, but we constantly buy and look at other games while we do it. But still,
$240 a year is still, it's not a terrible deal.
No, but it's also, aren't people, like, am I the only one getting really fucking annoyed with all the subscription services out there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Who's with me? Like, it's like,
I think
because
a lot of people are with you, Mario.
Because it, like, adds up, right? And you don't notice it. And
it's also, by now, because there are so many, especially, I mean, not so much for games, but for movies especially. You start to having to search where you can find it, right? Is it on Disney? Is it on Netflix? Is it on like HBO, Amazon, whatever?
Oh, yeah.
That's annoying.
Yeah.
And then the price point is certainly an issue. And it's just, I don't like it anymore.
It's like, you know, that Klaus Schwab quote, like, in the future, you will own nothing and you will be happy.
Suyo, dying of dehydration because I didn't renew my Water Plus subscription this year.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yes.
You say that, but I am paying for water every month, so
It's true, but that's on a per use basis, right? It's not like a subscription,
yeah,
right?
You're right.
Do people do? Yeah, it's also. Oh man, so much to complain. Today is like soapbox day. I feel like so much social issues because that's also, at least in Germany, that's a thing that like it's not common in Germany to get free water out there. Like, though that might be changing. I hear like at least in Berlin they're installing like water fountains and stuff.
Don
Yes.
Solarione, water subscription is so cyberpunk 2077.
It is, man, but
is,
it's almost too depressing to talk about because I don't know that might be coming.
Yeah, actually, regarding water subscriptions, there was a post near my apartment a few weeks back where the city informed us that they were adding something to the water.
Oh, stop! Nice. I'm glad our overlords are taking care of us.
Yes, and it was great because it was like 4 pages of explaining why this really doesn't matter. It doesn't affect us in any health way.
Okay, but
It
then
doesn't-
why do you have to put it in the water if it doesn't affect us?
The reason is that there got some algae or something got into the water,
Oh.
and the reason they added it is, again, the algae also doesn't matter to our. Well, it wasn't even an algae, just something
Yeah.
that turned the water slightly green. Had no effect apart from that.
Right.
But they didn't want the water to be green because I assume that people would
not a good
riot. Yeah. Also,
know.
probably because you want the water to be clear
Theata
so that
Suyo,
people.
they're going to make you into a gay frog.
Oh, God,
yes,
no.
exactly.
I think it's because you want people to be able to notify you if the water isn't clear.
That makes complete sense to me.
But
actually. Yes.
I love that. It's just like, okay, we're doing something. It doesn't affect you at all. You won't notice it. But here's 4 pages about why we're doing it, and carry on.
So Vincent, you had something you wanted to bring up. Maybe that's sort of more
So
on a
now I'm
lighter
thinking about
side.
names for water, for gamer water. Anyway,
That exists, right? Like gamer, like energy drinks and stuff. Isn't that a thing, like gamer grub?
no,
Isn't that a drinkable thing?
Sure, I don't know, man.
Go to gamergrub.com/he
no.
makes me. No, that's not a real thing. No.
No, what I wanted to talk about is that I played Lorelei and the Laser Eyes.
Ah, you finished it on your
I
own?
finished it because
right.
I figured we were pretty done with it, and I
Okay,
think we
okay.
made the right choice there. But I was curious about
All
the
right.
story.
All right, hold on, because we haven't talked about let me just briefly state what that is and stuff, because this is at least theoretically a podcast.
Yes.
So Lorelei and the Laser Eyes is like a puzzle adventure game, I would say, though it's not necessarily in a sort of classic point and click style adventure
No, in
game.
fact, you can't use the mouse.
Yes, it's true. A much bemoaned fact by Vincent, and we
And
played
many
it.
others, to be clear.
Yeah. No, I think, sure. Like, let's get into the criticism of the game in a moment. But what the game is like, it's kind of like an adventure game. It's also out for mobile, by the way, and I think that might be the reason for the lack of mouse support. And you arrive at a sort of a mansion deep in the forest. You were invited there by some artists or whatever. It's all very unclear and ominous. And then it's hard to describe because you basically just go in there and the puzzle starts. And there's like 4 characters: a painter, a magician, the weird artist guy, and you, I guess, who are somehow. It is suggested that you are also part of this mansion, and there's weird time travel aspects, and then you just solve a shit ton of like sort of number puzzles and so on. And it basically immediately gets into that. And if you do like sort of just number crunchy puzzles that are actually really well paced and clever, then it's a great game. We had some amount of frustrations with it, and I think because I crave story in games, I became sort of frustrated because the story wasn't. I bounced off it. Let's just leave it at that. And then we eventually put it down. But we played it a bunch, and I'm interested now, Vincent. What was your experience finishing it, and can you tell me like how does it end? I am curious. So spoilers now for Lorelei and the Laser Eyes.
Yes.
I set the sound.
Yeah, no,
For
it's
Lorelei.
just the trailer sound. I want to play that.
Right.
I'm just background stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, so we made about 50% through, and I finished it with I think 94.8% truth.
Oh, wow.
So almost got everything. I will also say I eventually just turned to a walkthrough because
Sure.
I was curious about the story, not so much about the puzzles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason why I'm saying that I think it's okay and good that we stopped is because, as you said, the story was a bit of a. There was just a little too little of the story and a little too much puzzle for me.
Yeah, that's a fair way to put it.
and-
Mirrors my feelings.
Yeah, we at the point where we stopped, we were quite a distance away from the next major story drops.
All right, yeah.
Though I will say there were some, and I enjoyed them. Specifically, when we stopped, we were chased by these mace-headed characters in suits.
That's true. That's a big spoiler, but as I said, spoilers are ahead. And yeah, at some point in the game, I actually thought this was really cool, right? I mean, for the first part, you get to explore this mansion freely, and you walk around and you puzzle it up in there, and you like open doors and stuff. And then eventually, you unleash these. What were they called?
Mace Man.
Just Mace Man?
I think so, yeah.
What were they in fiction? Are they like brothers or something? But
Yes.
anyway, they're like inhabitants of this weird labyrinth that exists in a separate dimension inside the house. It's weird. Like, there's reasons I struggle talking about this game and describing it. But they get sort of unleashed and they chase you around the house. And it's
Exactly.
I love that part because it's kind of reminiscent of like, Silent Hill and all these like horror games that I like
But
that
it's
have
not.
actual good stories.
But it's not.
It's not that?
because,
Okay, tell me about it.
The thing is, the game expects you to interact with them. So when they reach you, and it's basically your choice if they reach you because they are really
Easy to
really
outrun.
Easy to outrun.
Yeah.
Yes. When they reach you, they pull you into what would you call that? An investigation room.
Oh.
And they give you a scene of sort of successive story beats between a woman that looks like you and Renzo. And there's a scene basically, and then
Right.
once you've looked at everything, there are certain details you need to remember, and then they ask you a question about that, like how many knives were on the table.
Yeah, the game does this particular thing of putting you in scenes and then later asking you questions about it at several points. I never quite got why. Because it tends to be, it's not even hard. It's almost like a check for attendance in a classroom or something.
Also, I have felt like the questions, like we noticed with some of the puzzles, they varied widely in difficulty.
Oh yeah. Like, I would say most of them are actually quite easy.
Yeah, but specifically the questions that the Mace Man asked you.
Right.
Like for example, there's a table with like a notepad on it, and there's a really large red eye on it. Right.
Sure.
And the question.
Did you notice it?
The question at the end is, what was on the notepad?
Right.
And then another question is, how many arms did the candelabra has? What? I don't know, man. But yeah, just very vitally. But at the
Yeah.
end, if you got it right, they give you a script page.
Oh yeah.
And you can do that a total of 9 times. Also a number that comes up quite often with the maze, which is a 3x3 grid. and you basically have one maze man for every grid. And the script basically tells you the story of how your character, Lorelei, met Renzo and started working for him.
Right. Okay. So just, background info. Renzo is the artist guy who invites you to this place deep in the Black
Exactly.
Forest or whatever.
Who is a filmmaker in the 60s.
And you do find his sort of films with that screen. I really enjoyed that part, by the way. That was a really good puzzle, and it's like the sort of story kind of thing that I do like. But, that's sort of few and far between in the game. But he is this filmmaker. He invited you there, but he's otherwise extremely ominous and not really forthcoming with any kind of actual information. He just sort of wanders the halls and occasionally gives you these weird snide comments.
Yes, exactly. And for some reason, he brings not color, but like red
there's
ink
red
everywhere.
paint. And that's a sort of the thing, the frustrating thing. There's a lot of stuff being hinted at, and there's a lot of stuff with like symbology and so on, like numerology, numbers being significant, red paint that keeps reoccurring. But at least for me, it took too long for any kind of payoff, or like where things get connected and they actually now make sense and stuff. And I'm curious if that's changed, but I guess that's enough background. Last thing is that Renzo, actually does task you with getting these script pages.
Exactly. And that is one thing that you have to do. You basically, while doing other puzzles and exploring the mansion and so on, you every now and then interact with one of these maze men, and you do their puzzle, and then they give you another script page. And they're a really cool and interesting story drop, because they're quite lengthy, and the scene that you see from the puzzle is always also the scene that the page is about.
That's cool. So give me the gist of it. What is Lorenzo's big script?
So the script is basically that these two, that Lorenzo was an avant-garde filmmaker, and he had an idea for a new, very exciting project. And Lorelei was also a very experimental artist.
Yeah.
Specifically in the computer space. She
was a game dev.
No, but she used computers to create art, but not so much in. She
writes cool, stable diffusion prompts like me.
No, fuck off. No, she was kind of a game dev, but it's not set so specifically.
Okay.
But more so, she was she made like puzzle boxes and and artworks, like paintings and stuff like that. And a lot of that involved computers. For example, one of the backstory we learn is that she made like a painting in the 50s that is considered to be the first polygon painting.
Ah, okay.
Whatever that exactly means, but
sure.
And she watched a movie or film, specifically I'm gonna butcher the French title, the Animal Terrible.
The terrible animal.
Yes, which wasn't a well-received movie specifically, but she enjoyed it.
Right. She shares his refined tastes.
Yes.
Renzo's.
And then the two of them start working together. Lorelei brings along, or maybe Lorenzo already, not Lorenzo, Renzo already had the PC, but she sort of created the OQ-3 special PC, the supercomputer in the basement.
There is an actual like huge mainframe supercomputer in the basement where you have to find like logins and passwords, and it seems to be a main thing in the game.
Yes, and his assignment for her was for her to make a maze.
Sure.
And every time she asked, okay, what kind of maze? What are you looking for? He basically told her, you're an artist, you figure it out. This is all part of the process. And like in I think the second scene, she said, "I don't know what I'm doing," and he said, "That's great. You're already doing it. That's exactly what we want in a maze. Getting lost, perfect. Keep doing it." Stuff like that. It just keeps going like that, and the thing is, she's eventually figures out that he doesn't really have any money in this project because his producer, after seeing the animal film, sort of pulled the money. So he didn't rent out this old German hotel in the woods, but rather just occupied it because it's said to be torn down. And at the same time, he becomes more and more unhinged.
Yes, I believe that.
And eventually he has a revolver that he starts bringing along everywhere, and he locks her into the hotel.
He's like Mr. Burns in that episode of The Simpsons where he goes sort of crazy and locks himself in his room and eventually runs around with tissue boxes on his feet and like builds a small wooden paper, like a model airplane, and then asks Smithers to get into the airplane so they can escape together. And then Smithers can't do it. And then Mr. Burns gets out a revolver. Do it, Smithers. It's like, sorry, I just had to. You completely reminded me of that.
It is kind of like that. The ending of that whole situation is that there's a scene between the two of them where Lorelei enters, I think, her room, and Lorenzo is there looking at a window. There was something about him painting a red window before that.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff about that. There was a lot of stuff about a lot of things in that game.
And he talks a little towards the window, and then eventually turns around, and she sees that he has blinded himself. And
lots of stuff about eyes in this game.
And the madder he gets, the more he thinks he is in one of his movies. And at that point, he believes that the entirely fictional script, as far as we know, expects her to push him out of the window. So he starts basically assaulting her, and she, in self-defense, pushes him away. And it's not quite clear if that's actually enough to push him out of the window, or if he sort of wills himself to go that way.
Sure.
But yeah, he falls out of the window and dies, probably. So that's the one story.
Sure.
And then you have all these script pages, and you bring them to Lorenzo, or to the room of Lorenzo, and inside you find not Lorenzo himself, but rather a skeleton in his attire, and a whole bunch of other script pages. And
oh God.
That's not the whole script. That's like 12 out of 120 pages of a script. That is the story of the two other characters, of Lorenzo, the magician who lived in 1840, or 18 to 1840, and Renate, who is
She's a painter, right?
Yes, she is the painter, and also the last part of the original family that owned this hotel. The sort of baroness is what she's often called by Lorenzo. And I can't even really tell you anymore what happens between them, because it's just...
But do you find all that stuff out? Like you mentioned, like over 100 pages of script. Do you collect them all in the game?
No, you collect, like, in that room there are like 12 of them.
All right.
And you get the gist. It's also pretty wild that So Renate is a painter, and at that point in her life, she's getting older, and she has some condition that will render her blind eventually.
Right.
And Lorenzo is part of the Brotherhood, as we already learned in our playthrough or our part playthrough, and they sent him to her to search for something.
Right.
Specifically the third eye, whatever that is.
Yeah, also another eye-themed thing mentioned a lot in the game.
And the script starts with him arriving with like a worn-down horse and a wagon. And he basically tells her that he can heal her if she lets him stay.
Right.
And the story continues with them, specifically Renate, getting having like a standoff, sort of. Lorenzo is very much the charming magician, and Renate is sort of wise to his tricks, until eventually her eyelight actually starts to fade, and she asks him to make true on his promise. And he has a flask of vermilion tears, which he got them from one of the brothers of the Brotherhood, who said, these are just eye drops. It's a trick. There's nothing to them. And Lorenzo does a flourish and pretends there's a lot going on, and puts these eye drops in her eyes, and she starts screaming and doesn't stop for a while, and he is quite terrified of what he has done.
He thought they would do nothing,
Exactly.
but at least they hurt.
Yes, and eventually there seem to be acidic to some degree.
Yeah, you see, because what Lorenzo didn't know is that in that water of the brothers, some green algae were growing, and the German government added completely harmless chemicals.
Completely
Anyway, sorry,
harmless.
but
Yes. You won't even notice them, but don't put it in your eyes.
Yeah. If you mix it with vermilion, it will like dissolve your eyes. Anyway, please continue.
So it renders her blind, and from that point on, she also goes just off the hook.
Do you think this story mimics Renzo and Lorelei's story?
I mean, in the madness, kind of, and certainly the eye thing, right? The blinding mimics it. But apart from that, vaguely, I would say.
Yeah, okay.
But it's certainly... Thing is, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And
there is. I don't think we can cover it all, Vincent. I'm sure there's more. Because, I played a lot of this game with you, and I could see how it might continue. And I bet there's like lots of these little story vignettes and so on.
Yeah, but okay, let me just say, I don't want to go through the entire story with you, but I will say, or maybe we can do that off screen at some point. But I enjoyed the story.
Oh, yeah? Does it get better? Or maybe it's just me that I didn't enjoy all of it and you did, and that's fine.
Specifically the scripts, and from there on out, the story in general I enjoyed. Even I had to look up some of the details afterwards. There's a great write-up on stream where someone like goes through all the characters and what they mean and how they're connected and all that stuff.
So I am curious, Vincent. Sorry?
For me, there's too much puzzle and too little story.
Yeah, I mean, sure. That mirrors my sentiments. I am curious though, how does it end? Or is that impossible to say unless you understand like story beats X, Y, Z that come before?
Well, okay, we're getting into super heavy spoilers now.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to play it. So, be extra careful if you're listening at this point.
So, eventually, you, like the last bit of the game is Oculus 3 or whatever it's called. And you need like 3 different informations for that, and you eventually get that. And that is basically the third eye. The third eye is some supernatural force, or maybe a god, or it's not clear, that eventually, or that originally came down somewhere in Africa in a cave as a meteor, and ended up somehow in this hotel. And the PC is the reincarnation, or this current form of it. And when you log into it, you actually enter the PC. And what you do then is that you walk through basically all the different areas you've been to before, and you input a lot of answers to questions that like, what year is it? What's the current year? And eventually you sort of through the power of the third eye, you merge with yourself, which, as you might have expected, is the old woman. And
Right.
That is the end. And the overarching story, if you will, is...
What do you mean that's the end? Like, that can't be the end. Like, you merge with the old one. What does that even mean?
Yeah. So the story there is that this old woman is close to dying, or maybe has already died. It's not clear. And has created in her mind this it's not even in her mind really, but this alternate reality where she explores this hotel to cope with what happened between Lorelei, which is her, and Renzo in the 60s. And to do that, she also created these 2 other characters, Lorelei and not Lorelei, Lorenzo and Renata, which are fictional. But the issue is that the third eye is a mythical force that sort of made them real in the past. So these characters are both fictional, but also really existed. And then a lot of things get a bit muddy. For example, the company that made the Oculus was founded in 1840, presumably by Lorenzo. And yeah,
I still don't get a narrative payoff, Vincent. I'm sorry I have to be so harsh
That's
with
fair.
something that you enjoyed, and that's fine. But I have certain predilections. What I need from a thing is like that there's an authentic struggle of the heart with something, Vincent. And like, what was the struggle here, and what did the people involved learn or like come to see differently, right? What's the payoff for like the human experience? How does this change my existence?
Oh man,
I need stuff from my video game.
Yeah.
Unless it's like Conquest of Heroes and we're just slaying like all
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Look, I realize I'm like biased, but somehow the game makes a setup, right? And creates certain expectations, and because they ticked certain boxes of like mystery and like Silent Hill and maybe a little bit of Twin Peaks in there, and also, by the way, lots of David Foster Wallace, in my opinion, that they're sort of, with all the eye stuff and so on, like it reminds me a little bit of Infinite Jest. But it's like, so they do that setup, it creates certain expectations, and then if it kind of doesn't deliver, that's just how it works. I get kind of disappointed. And from your retelling now, I don't quite feel satisfied.
I'm trying to retell a story that takes like 15 hours to play through. Right?
I'm not criticizing your retelling. I totally believe that you're doing a good job and giving an authentic version of it. I'm criticizing the substance there of the story.
Yeah, fair enough.
But also, it's we kept saying that it's a puzzle game. It's probably still fun to puzzle through.
Yeah. I guess I'm just not super into puzzle games, apparently.
Sure.
Which, I mean, I'm also not super into point-and-click adventures, so there's no surprise there. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed the story. I would have liked a bit more, or maybe just like more story beats and less distance between them, time distance. Well, yeah.
I mean, I'm glad you played it through. I do appreciate it because now I also have some closure. Because we definitely got intrigued by the game. It also just has a lot of style, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. Here's this last thing I want to say about it because that's sort of what it made me think of. This was a long time ago, but in my university time, I had a course in like sort of literary theory and stuff, and the teacher. Like we talked about this book that I think she really didn't like, and it was a Bernhard Schlink novel. I forget the title of it, but in order to show us why the book is shit, I guess all she did was like after we talked about it for a bunch, she just goes to the board and starts asking about, okay, give me some themes of the book. Like it was a big book, right? Like let's say 400, 500 pages and stuff.
Yeah.
And so we come up with a bunch of themes. It's like, oh, it's about like, I don't know, conflict. It's about obsession. It's about ideology. It's blah, blah, blah. All kinds of, and she fills up the board. There's like so many themes in the book and like these binary opposites and like all these tensions in the book. And at the end, it's like, do you see this? Like, this is too much.
Well, what is it even about?
Yeah, it's about so much. It's about nothing. And it's like not, it opens up all these cans, but then doesn't really finish anything. That metaphor doesn't work. But you know what I mean? That's how I felt about Lorelei. It's like bringing up all these things, and there's a lot of themes, lots of symbology, but I'm lacking the big crunchy point or like some kind of focus here. That's how I went away from it.
Yeah, I think my favorite part of this story was the whole blinding thing. And I think we read the goddammit, these names. Renzo's manifesto about movies that are made for the movie, not for an audience.
Yeah.
Specifically not for the greedy eyes of the audience.
I did like that a lot, yeah.
Yeah, and
absolutely. I wish they would have done more with it.
Yes, exactly, because that, as I said, that's my favorite part of the story, because they do talk a little bit about capitalism and how these like multiple characters here blind themselves, but then they also, through the third eye, they get sort of they lose their sight, but at the same time they get a sort of enlightenment.
Of course, yes. I mean, I should know as a card-carrying blind prophet. Obviously, you become blind to the worldly environment around you, and you see another world.
Yes,
obviously.
Yeah, everybody that watches this stream and has to listen to you should know.
The world I see is one of better games.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's at least a very common trope in literature. Going back to the Greeks, not Greeks, like Tiresias, the blind prophet who talks to Odysseus. There's like, we talked about Dune on this podcast, even. Like Paul More Deep. At least, spoilers, I guess. Never mind. I guess not blind in the first book, but yeah.
What a turnaround there.
Never mind.
But that part of the story I really enjoyed, but it's like there's so little of it in the game for like in these 20 hours you're supposed to play it, or 25 hours. And that it's almost not there at all.
Yeah. I wish they would have done more with it. And now, since you talked about the eye, I do want to bring up this part. I mentioned it earlier a little bit. I just think that's an interesting parallel, and it also made me curious about all that eye stuff and third eye and seeing like some kind of other world and so on. In David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest, also spoilers for Infinite Jest, but come on, you should know this by now that we spoil shit, at least in this segment of the podcast, I guess. Essentially in the book, right, one of the characters, the father of one of the main characters. Hard to say because that book also is structured so weirdly. But the father is a filmmaker, or was. And one of the films he made is like sort of a central MacGuffin in the book, which is like he was an experimental filmmaker. And there's a sort of movie tape in the book that like goes around and is sort of almost mythical, because whenever someone puts it on, it's like so beautiful to look at that people get sort of enthralled and hypnotized, and they forget to eat or wash or drink, and like they're just sort of tied to the screen and they cannot be torn away, to the point where like police squads are sent after them, but then the police squads get hypnotized as well, and and it's a huge problem and so on. And like Infinite Jest plays a lot with this theme of like this sort of beauty that you can like see and that sort of almost destroys you, and right, but that also then ties into lots of other themes of like addiction, because that's the other main character in the book is like going through
It's addiction.
no well, kind of, right? That's not that wrong to say that.
Yeah.
But it's just it's a much more mundane story where it's just like a guy's going through a 12-step program, right? And it's then because it's structured weirdly, it all sort of ties together, and I could now fill the rest of this podcast, like, or another podcast, with like talking about how that works, and I think what kind of point they're trying to make there, or David Foster Wallace is trying to make there. But I'm not going to do that now, obviously. But somehow Lorelei reminded me of that, but they didn't do as much with it as Infinite Jest did, which is, I know that's a weird comparison, a tall order, and I know I do not expect every fucking game out there. I mean, I enjoy playing Conquest of Heroes and stuff.
Why can't every movie be Lord of the Rings?
No,
like, I don't
like,
get it, man.
Why can't you just make Infinite Jest like Lazy Devs? What the fuck? Is this what I pay $15 on Gamepass for?
Yeah, okay.
No, anyway, but you know what I mean, right? Like, that theme specifically, I really felt like, oh, did they enjoy reading Infinite Jest? Cool. And then I was just hoping for more, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm still glad that game exists. As I said before, I think it's cool for people who are, which I'm sure there's a large demographic out there, people who are really into like dense puzzle games will enjoy this, I think. You can play it on your iPad, which is cool.
Also, I noticed that apparently I'm almost as blind as you are regarding puzzle games, because I missed a lot. A lot of these puzzles are just visual,
right?
And even beyond that, for example, you remember these document tubes with maps inside?
Yeah,
we could have opened them all.
Oh, really?
Because
they had like 3 number codes, right?
Yeah, when we found the first one, there was a document next to them that had the code for the first one, right? Yeah, that also had all the other codes. I just never scrolled to the right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like we missed much, and I don't feel like that's a very great puzzle either.
It's just having maps is helpful in that case. Also, a lot of just visual puzzles, which is why I think that it's good that we stopped where we did.
Yeah.
And again, I have to mention the controls. The controls. I looked at the subreddit, for example. There was on the first page was a post about how the controls suck.
Yeah.
It's just
other people share your
this
frustration.
This is not acceptable in a modern game. Sorry, it's not okay. And
other people have spoken.
Yes, finally, I wasn't a fan of how much they utilized that maze and how much running there was in that maze. I eventually got to the coffee stuff, which didn't help as much as I was hoping for.
Mazes tend to suck in games, in general, I feel. Do you know any maze that's been done well in a video game?
Oh God, That's a good question.
I feel like
can't think of any.
no, neither can I. I feel like the only good thing about mazes is literally if you yourself as a real person, if it's like a corn maze, right? And you're actually just there and maybe with other people and it's kind of funny. But even then, it's like,
Fiat Pac-Man.
okay, yeah, okay, you win the podcast.
Fair.
That is actually
yes.
true. But okay.
But even then, you can see the entire
That's
thing.
the thing. It's not really a maze in the sense that the point of the game is to like find the exit or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just sort of almost like a deathmatch arena or something.
Yeah, basically.
But I still agree with your point. It's still kind of a maze, right? And so I do think that's the answer to my question. You are correct, and that is a good maze.
Yeah.
But especially once you're in a 3D environment, I feel like it's just confusing and tends to also be boring because all you end up doing is looking at walls, right? It looks kind of
and
not interesting.
This one, you just like you run through this maze so many times.
Right.
And
Yeah. It gets even
in
more
different,
tedious.
in different versions. Like one of them is top down, another one is third person, and it's the same maze. I mean, by now I know every piece of the maze by heart, and I could basically navigate all the different areas. And that's like if you create a maze and then have the player run through it so many times that they can do that, I feel like that's too much. That's not the point of a maze.
Vincent, I'm glad we played it as long as we did.
Yeah.
And no longer.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And
also, still, my highlight is the song. The piano
the song was actually really good. I listened to that on YouTube a couple times. I always, I have this idea of like, let's stay positive, not negative. And
fuck you, Marius.
No, I know. Kind of struggled to do it today, but I do want to say the song is really, really good. People should listen to it, and I will be looking out for what the studio does in the future. Can we mention one more time who made Lorelei and the Laser Eyes? Simogo, yeah.
The Swedish developer.
Yeah. I will be watching out for what they're doing because, as I said, there's lots of stuff that intrigued me there, but just missed the mark for me slightly.
Yeah. There are like 3 parts that I really enjoyed, and it's just after we played it, or after the point where we stopped. And it's just reading what they wrote, basically. The 2... scene pages on the collections, that was really fun. And then there was a group of puzzle boxes that you could work out, and inside every single one there were 8 puzzle boxes or something. There was a piece of Lorelei's childhood and sort of story, basically. And that was also really just well written, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah. So there's definitely good stuff in there.
Also, okay, just because
yes,
it popped up.
I will put the kibosh on this eventually.
I found out how one can open the shortcuts, and it's so stupid that
Which shortcuts? Yeah. So in the game, there's like all these like just blocked doors that I think are supposed to just make traversal easier. There's no actual like meaning behind them.
Exactly. It's the puzzle book. The puzzle book that
really?
both thought didn't have any reason to
that's
exist.
so cool. I actually really like that because we eventually found just in like some random library an actual puzzle book that had no in-game meaning except it like described on its pages just a bunch of number puzzles. And we were wondering, are these just puzzles that they came up with and then discarded and didn't make it into the game? And no, I guess it turns out they were for the fast travel stuff. Yeah, that's cool. But I wish they would have made it more clear, though, that that's the connection there.
The thing is, if you know it, right? You open the book, on the first page, there is shortcut underlined and in red underlined.
But that's it. I mean, how would you say, is that a presentation that actually makes it clear to you that it's
now that I know it, it makes it clear.
Yeah, I feel, I don't know.
But that's always the thing with these puzzles, right? It's like once you know, then it's obvious. But before that,
But that's the whole challenge in a puzzle game, right? How
Sure.
good are you at communicating with the player? Like, what is the logic behind your puzzle? And I mean, and I've spoken to this at length while we played. And in general, I feel like they did a really good job actually about that. Most puzzles don't have that super frustrating effect that adventure games sometimes have, where you just can't think of the fact that you're supposed to put the honey on the cat hair to make a mustache, because that's the one thing that the developer thought of to solve their puzzle.
Yeah.
In general, that didn't happen. It's just here, I guess we didn't make the connection with the shortcuts.
Yeah, and I will also say, in most cases here, the puzzles had a pretty obvious solution that was many times just nearby. Like even if you felt like I don't know what the game wants from me, just look around a bit. And sometimes there is no answer, yes, but in most cases there is like an 1847 hidden somewhere, and that's the number you need for the notepad.
Yes.
Or
And public service announcement, you do not need to go onto Google and Google movie titles on IMDb.
Yes.
Not necessary. Game doesn't make you do that. It's all in the game, what you need to solve it.
Yeah, that was also just bad luck that the movie titles or the movie posters are randomized every time, just like many of these things are. And that it was just bad luck that the first movie poster I Googled actually
It's an actual movie.
had the movie, yes.
Yeah. Then,
You know.
and the other ones actually don't exist.
No.
All right. That is kind of bad luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
All right.
good game. I enjoyed it. Bit long, and I'm apparently not into puzzle games.
So that's Lorelei and the Laser Eyes.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Hope next time we'll have even better, more fun news. Bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the A Dungeon About podcast. We record live usually every Thursday at 4 p.m. Central European Time on Twitch, twitch.tv/HeMakesMePlay_live. You can also watch some of our Let's Plays and other videos we create on the He Makes Me Play YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@HeMakesMePlay. And you can also follow us on Twitter @makes_play. Thanks everyone. See you next time.